Welcome back to Music Theory Logic. Andrew here, and I'm in the process of finishing a stack of music I'm doing for one of my publishers. This is for the show Love After Lockup. Strangely addicting reality TV show. Highly recommend checking it out. And I thought it'd be a good opportunity to show you some of the things I do once I write the notes to get the music to feel a lot better and more organic. So let's go ahead into the logic session. So here we are in, again, this simple instrumental. We basically have four elements. We've got the drums, the bass, a chord layer, which I have dragged out chords, and I have comped chord progression. All right. And then finally, I have a melody, which is essentially an arpeggio, and then a double of that down here. I'm going to go ahead and play it, and then we are going to make this sound a lot better. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to make it so that instead of having the default velocity and attack, how loud these notes are and where they happen, which right now is perfect because I wrote it by drawing all the notes in, we're going to make it feel a lot better. And this is something that if you're not doing this to your music, you should, and it's going to make everything breathe a lot more. Here is the instrumental. All right, so not the craziest melody and chord progression in the world, but I'm pretty happy with this. If you watch that show, they have a lot of sort of electronic sort of trap music, what I would call it, in the background. So melodies that aren't like too in your face, drums and bass that are create sort of an atmosphere. You can picture this beneath some sort of dialogue of somebody, or like a scene of somebody showing up to pick up the person they're dating who's been locked away and they've never actually met, and they're like already married, which is, I'm sure it works out for some people. Sounds pretty wild to me, which is what makes the show interesting. It's sort of like Catfish, only even crazier. That's even possible. So let's start with our melody. I'll solo this out. Again, it's what's functioning as the melody, but it's pretty much just an arpeggio. I'm in the key of A minor. All right, so there's three elements that we want to vary. One element is attack, or basically where the notes start. Since I wrote this on the grid, each of these are perfectly on the downbeat. Now, since I have the fastest rhythm I'm working with are eighth notes, if I were to grab this, I could take advantage of quantize feature over here by putting it to eighth note, and I could swing out those eighths. Now that already adds some characteristic or soul to our melody. Basically what that does is every other note is slightly behind time. Where it was right on this line, now it is there. All right? So that's one option. Another thing you can do is not swing it out automatically at all, and you could come in and just kind of like change where your stuff is. You don't want to do it so much that you really notice it, but that already sounds better than a straightforward one. Just a little bit more character, if you will. It's kind of like the difference between looking at a picture that's, a straight photograph and a picture that has some more breath to it, or like a painting or a drawing of something that really exists. Cool. So another important thing to think about when you're doing this is part of the reason to do this when we're writing music in the computer is that, first of all, computers aren't listening to our music. Human beings are listening to our music. human beings have some imperfection built into their body, like for instance, their heart beating not on a perfect level. It's going to vary, kind of have some heart rate variability. Another reason is that all music before the computer was literally played by human beings, and that goes back hundreds of years. And with the invention of the computer, it's sort of the ability to create like true perfection, or things being exactly where we think they should be as composers. So we varied that attack. So we're going to do it with the swing. So where the notes happen are now not perfect. Every other one is out of time. All right. Then we're going to go in and vary the velocity. One thing you could do is you could just hold like shift on your keyboard and grab some different ones. Really be kind of random with this. And then you could change your velocity over here. Velocity in Logic in a lot of these DAWs is represented as a color. So the higher the velocity, the darker the color. Red is as dark as they get, and as light as they get is going to be like a purple of some kind. So we could do that. Now, Logic and a lot of these DAWs have, they know we're going to want to do this, so they build in this what's called Midi functions. So if I go to Midi, or I'm in piano roll, I go to functions, Midi transform, I could go with random velocity. If I hit operate, what that's going to do is it's going to change the notes. Now, one important thing about this is, so first of all, see the red ones, those are going to be as loud as it gets. Might be a problem for us, it might not. Let's hear just this melody. Cool. And then you could go in and add some articulation that lots of players would do. So like the first of the phrase, first of each of those patterns, I could go in and make a darker velocity so it feels like the player's accenting the downbeat. That would be pretty common. All right. Finally, we varied two elements. We varied the attack where it happens. We varied how loud it plays, but we haven't varied the pitch. And one thing you can do, and this is going to help out a lot of your instrumentals, especially if you're doing something that sounds like a real instrument, like a guitar or a trumpet or a violin or something like that. Go into the pitch bend portion of your MIDI. You can just draw a line across for 0. Now, I want to actually join all these up so that I can write the MIDI as one thing. Now, it defaults in Logic if you're holding Command on your keyboard. It's going to go to a pencil tool. Up here is how you would also change that. So you could go in and actually select the pencil tool, and then you have said pencil tool. You just click to draw with the pencil tool. You can literally just sort of randomly bounce it around the line. Now, this isn't the most specific, but with like this television music, for instance, it's not a ton of money per placement. So the name of the game here is lots and lots of placements. And so you don't want to spend weeks on a single song, because the likelihood of that ending up worth it is very little. So faster we can go, the better. Now, if we hear that, gives us just some soul to that. So now let's hear our what happened to the arpeggio. Feels like it hasn't really changed that much, but it has, and we're going to go back and listen to the original audio. So let's go ahead into this chord layer. Now, these are duplicates of one another, so I could treat them differently. So like, let's say with the first group, undo that. I have to go back to, all right, we're out of the pencil tool. If I grab those notes, I could do the swing. I can change it slightly. So if I put it at 12, that'll vary where those attacks are. Again, you can go in and literally move them to the left or the right. That's a fun thing to do as well. So now you'll notice that not all of these are varied. Only the second eighth notes are varied, right? So I could go in and let's do some custom. So this one, I can move there. Now, if you're playing the piano, your fingers aren't actually going to hit the notes at the identical same time. So you can do that, and that's also instantly going to help your mix. Right when instruments play at the beginning, they have something called transients in them, and transients are kind of like the impact portion of a sound. So if I'm plucking a guitar string, there's going to be the note that you're hearing, the tone of that, but then there's going to be the actual like percussive nature of the pick hitting the string in the beginning. With the piano, same way. When you hit it instantly, there's going to be some sort of thing that happens, and then that thing falls off and decays. And so by varying where those happen, that's going to help a ton. Now, obviously, it'd be tedious to do all of this. So just like with our velocity, our DAWs have some automated functions. I'm going to go into Humanize. Now, Humanize, like it sounds, is going to make this sound like it was played by a human being. Cool. And then finally, I could come in here and do some of that pitch bend stuff. Now, it's important to note that like what this line is doing doesn't actually mean anything. This is changing a parameter within the actual instrument itself. So in other words, it's like a ratio. If the pitch bend parameters are very wide, a little bit of motion of the line will change the note a lot. Because again, let's say the movement I did was 10%, right? If the parameter is 100, that would be a unit of 10, right? 10% of that. But if the unit was 10, 10% of that is only 1. So again, this line doesn't actually mean anything. It's just controlling the parameter within the synthesizer. Cool. So the chord layer 1 without any variation was that. Now these are different sounds. So how about we duplicate this, and let's take the literal MIDI from the top. So that top instrument is actually not a polyphonic synth, so we're not hearing multiple notes in there, which means it's kind of pointless that I had the multiple notes in there. Varied, not varied. Varied, not varied. So again, we're talking about really, really subtle nuance, but we are going to play this from the beginning. So let's use our varied MIDI. And then I actually bounced this track earlier. Should have had it open already. We're going to new library music, love after lockup, 1, bounce, and let's drag this back in. So this instrumental in the very beginning sounded like this. All right, so again, that's with everything perfect. Here it is now with variation, and you'll notice it just has a little bit of character. It's hard to exactly figure out what you're hearing is different, but it just feels better. And again, that's because most music that we've heard, or the music that we've heard that's made on a computer, has its origins in music played by human beings, and we don't play things perfect, even if we're really good players. So here it is with Imperfection. Cool. So hopefully that helped you, regardless of what kind of music you're making. If you're using the computer, vary some of those three elements. Again, that's where the note happens. All right. So from left to right in piano roll, that's how loud the note happens, usually a color by your DAW. So how dark they are. You can change the velocity. That's how loud they are. And then finally, the pitch. I was using the pitch bend parameter within MIDI to just add some subtle movement. If you look at a live player and we put them into Melodyne, which would show us the pitch in real time, maybe I'll do that to show you. Even the greatest performers on the planet aren't like just going to be straight lines that are perfect. They're moving into notes, they're moving out of notes, and you can do that custom with the pitch bend, or you can just do what I did and add some random motion that will again make it so that the pitch isn't isn't like inhuman in how perfect it is throughout the whole time. And that's going to help your music a lot, again, regardless of the genre. If you found that helpful, you'd help me out a ton by subscribing to the channel. Once again, my name's Andrew. Hit that bell for notifications. Thanks for tuning into Music Theory Logic, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.